So welcome guys. Today we'll be looking at hybrid data fetching, and basically that is how I fetch data in all of my NextJs application. So hybrid data fetching is basically a combination of server-side fetching and then client-side data fetching. The reason why I do things this way is because I get the best of both worlds. I get the advantage of server-side data fetching and also the advantage of client-side data fetching. So what is server-side data fetching? Server-side data fetching is basically fetching data from an API or database on the server and then passing that to the clients. Like basically when before the page loads, you're fetching data and then making that data available to the client. Then client-side fetching is basically fetching data from an API on the browser, like on the browser, as opposed to server-side, which happens on the server. They both have their peculiarities. So client-side gives you the interactivity, makes your application interactive, but server-side helps boosting your application SEO, because during the build time, SEO crawlers can get into your application and then index your application more faster or more better. So yeah, one way I do hybrid data fetching in my application is Tanstack query, and I'm going to be showing us how to use Tanstack query to achieve that today. So firstly, we want to set up a simple NextJs application. So you're going to have npx create next app at latest, and I'm going to name it hybrid data fetching. So I'm going to have to fill in some prompts. So we like to use TypeScript, yes, links. Just say yes for all of this. This is not a NextJs intensive project, just to show you how to use the hybrid data fetching. This might take some time. Let's wait anyways.
8 semesters later.
So now that the project has installed completely, you're going to go into the project directory, cd hybrid data fetching. So just copy this to ensure that you're going to the correct directory, and then open VS Code at this directory. So we have our project. So we want to set our application up for SSR with Tanstack query. So you go into the setup, you want to copy all of this code. So you could check the documentation to see more things, but you want to copy this particular code. Then go into your VS Code, create a provider in the app component, provider.tsx, then wrap, then paste the code there. So yeah, so you want to wrap the providers. Okay, you want to wrap the providers you just created around your children. So I was already importing this wrongly. So okay, now that we have done that, we have set up Tanstack query in the application. So the next thing we want to do now is let's try to see how we can use hybrid data fetching. So fetch on the data side and then try to revalidate on the client side. So go into your VS Code, want to create an action folder. And then let's just name this to-do.js. So the way I fetch data in NextJS project is I have my server actions. We execute the request on the server, and then I consume those requests using Tanstack query. Let's declare that this is a server file, or that's for server functions, and then let's have a simple fetch to do function. It is an async function. So we're going to have cons, then response is equal to new promise resolve, and we want to fine, because I already give us something. So we want to return this rather. So now that we have a server action, what I do basically is create a hook to consume the action. So I have like a hooks folder. I write all of my hooks. So I'm just going to create use fetch to do .csx. So you could go into the documentation, and then they have like guide for how to fetch data using the hook. So okay, so we have this use query hook. So for the use query, basically the query function is basically the function that executes the API request, or that makes the call to an external database or server. While query key is a way for Tanstack query to identify each request. So with a unique query key, Tanstack query is able to know that okay, this request, it belongs to this or belongs to this category. Just a way to identify a request. So we want to take this, then go into VS Code, and then so we have export const use fetch to do is equal to, so you're just simply going to return this. So we want to import use query, then we want to change the query key here. In our case, we are fetching to this, although that is just a way to mock what we wrote. Basically is just mocking an API request. And then in the query function we have fetch to do's. Okay, so we have to just check what export const fetch to do. So again, to import fetch to do. Now this should normally, okay, supposedly give me a suggestion, probably because I wrote do.js instead of to do.ts. So import fetch to do, and then basically we have created our hook. So we want to go into the to do component that we created, and then we want to import use fetch to do. So now we could have, and this is like the beautiful part of Tanstack query, like it provides you with a lot of properties that you could use out of the box. So you could access the data directly. You could name that as to do's. You could access loading states, you could access error state. There are a lot of other things that we could use here. So I'm just going to console. Okay, we have to declare this, make this a client component. So use clients. I'm just going to console the log the data for now, so you see what we have. So just console the log to do's, and then go into the application, show JavaScript console. So you can basically see our to do item being consoled here. So if you refresh, it takes like 3 seconds, I think. Yeah, it takes like a second, sorry. So it takes a second, then shows the data. So now we can just do something really simple with that data. If we check the data, we have like a title, and then we have then an ID. We could just render that simply on the page. So we'll have if it's loading, then render loading, However, if if it is not loading and there is an error, then just render something else. Yeah, say hey, something went wrong. Usually you handle data fetching, something went wrong. Then finally, if there is data, you want to render the data. So you're just basically going to do to-dos dot map. We have to do. Okay. So okay, let's use, then we have an ID, and then we want to return. Okay, let's just do this. So okay, to do is of type unknown, and I think that is because in our to do action it basically didn't specify what type to do was, what then this refers to this being is returning. So what we can do is, this is a promise that is going to resolve to an array with of objects with number title string and then completed boolean. So yeah, the reason why like this is still screaming is because this is returning an array of objects. Each object is having an ID number, title string, and completed boolean. But this expects that the function returns just one object with that, and not an array of objects. So we can just change that by specifying that it is an array of objects. And so the to do is possibly undefined, and then just remove this any from to do. So if you go into the application now, you should see our to do application. So now basically what you are doing is you are fetching on the client side. This is a client component. This is a client component that I basically fetching on the client side. So if I go into this server action and then set the time to 4 seconds, if I refresh the page, you see loading indicator for like 4 seconds, and then it resolves, and then we see how to do list. Now all of that is basically happening in the browser. Now let's show how to combine this client side fetching with server side fetching. So you can basically, if you go into the documentation for Advanced SSR, you're going to see here, like it's basically explained here. So you want to go into the page, the closest page .css file to the component where you're fetching the data, and then you want to copy this code. So going to, now in our case the closest page is, because we have no other route, so this is the closest page. We have this, so we want to import the query client, and here we are doing our action is fetch to do's, and the ID has to be the same thing as the ID used. Now this is an async function. I've forgotten to spell async. It is an async function. Then you want to go into your use fetch to do and ensure that both have the same ID. So now with this, what we're basically doing is that we are prefetching the data on the server. So the data is available on the server and then like passed to the client. So if you go into our browser, it loads for like 4 seconds. Then by the time it's loading, you see like the to do. So basically we are like fetching the data. Data is being made available right there on the server side, and then before like being passed on the to the client side. So now the advantage of doing this is that you help to improve your application SEO. Web crawlers get into your application, can get access to the data on the server side while the application is being fetched on the server side, and then use that to index your application. So for me, I do think like this is like a really nice way to fetching data in your NextJs application, because like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, you get to enjoy best of both worlds. You get to enjoy the advantage that SSR gives, like server side data fetching rather, and then the advantage that client side data fetching gives. Both are like unique in their ways, and they offer like their own advantage. With client side, you definitely need client side data fetching because you want to like fetch data based on user interactions. You want to react to user actions and then use that to like fetch data. And at the same time, you want to ensure that your application SEO is on point. So this is like one way by which you can grab the best of both worlds. So yeah guys, I hope this was really insightful for you. If you really like the video, please click on the like button, and then if you want to see more, please click on the subscribe button. See you later. Bye.